All right, today we are going to focus on greasing the wheel bearings for the Can-Am Maverick X3. This is the RR 2020. So we got our jack ready. Thankfully with this one there's enough height, you can go right in the center, lift the whole side up, and you don't have to put any blocking on here. It's pretty nice. So I did do the right side already, and it's an easy project, but actually just pulling the hub off, there is a rust ring on there because the bearings from the factory aren't greased that well. And the front one we were able to get off with beating on it a little bit with a dead blow. The rear we had to use some pry bars, so it wasn't that fun. Hopefully the other side will go a little better. I'll just kind of show you the tips and tricks on how to actually go ahead and do this if that's something you want to do. I would recommend it. We have 1,500 miles on here. They're all easy miles. We just cruise around on the road. So we take pretty good care of our equipment, and the fact that these are already rusting is pretty sad. So I would recommend getting this tool right away and greasing your bearings if you are not. So I'll show you how it works, but essentially this will slip right over your axle, greaser it right here, and your bearing has two races, an inner race that's on this side and over here, and this grease will go up in the center of your races and squish out through your bearings. You don't have to worry about blowing out your seals. The seals are attached on the inside and kind of flap out at the top. You'll actually see the grease squirt up around the top. Once you see that, you stop. These tools are probably 25, 30 bucks, and I would highly recommend it. Otherwise, you're going to be going through a lot of bearings. All right, your first step is you're going to go ahead and just remove your lug nuts. Easiest thing is to go ahead and loosen your lug nuts while your machine's still on the ground so your tire doesn't spin, and then go ahead and raise it up. Alright, your next step is you're going to take these two bolts that hold your caliper on. You're going to remove those, flip this to the side. We have to pop this cover off. You're going to have a cotter pin in here. We're going to take that off, and then you're going to have your large axle nut. We're going to remove that. So I will go ahead and remove a couple items, and then we'll cut back in here and show you some more. Alright, so what we have to do before you take your caliper off, we have to crack this nut loose. It helps if you have somebody that can step on the brake for you. Otherwise, you could probably prop a board in there against the brake. Potentially, you could also put it in four-wheel drive. I'd rather use the brakes. I don't want to put all this pressure on the drive line. These are torqued to about 185 foot-pounds, and then from the factory, since they've been set for a while, who knows what it's up to. Drive line could probably take it. I'm not going to deal with that. I'll just put the brake on, crack this loose, and then you can take the caliper off. Just place that out of the way for now, somewhere it's happy. All right, now that we have the nut loosened up, you can go ahead and just take that off by hand. These suckers are on there. Be prepared for a battle. So ideally, this hub should slip right off. Once you clean it up, they're going to go back on really nice. When I notice on the outside of the hub, where the race sits on top of, it'll pull out initially pretty well, but the back of the hub that sits inside the race had a rust ring, and that's right where this would be. So as I was pulling it off, it came out pretty decent, but that last little bit really battled me to get it pulled all the way out. Once I get it pulled out, I'll show you that, and then I just take a Scotch-Brite, I clean it back up, re-grease everything, and it slips right back together really nice. So the biggest battle of this whole thing is getting your nuts off and pulling your hub off. So there, it slips to that point pretty easy. Now we'll see how the rest of the battle goes. I'd recommend using a dead blow so you don't wreck anything. So the axle's free. This guy wants to fall. Let's see, I might re-secure him so he's not bouncing around. If that's possible. temporarily tack that in place. that was the easiest I've had so far. So you can see it's a bit of a struggle, and it's not terrible, this one, but you can see a little bit of a mark right there. This is actually the nicest, and that's probably what came out the best. The other ones had a pretty big rust ring right there, but you can see it is a little bit of a challenge to get them pulled out. So yeah, best one so far. I'm happy about that. So now you just take your tool. Your tool is going to slip inside here. Pop it in. I'm using a synthetic grease, and we're going to apply this until we see it come out our seal. You're not going to damage your seals. Your seals are only attached to the inside. The outside is free, so the grease is going to flow right past it. So you don't have to worry about putting too much in. That was 1 pump. That's 2. And this tool is already filled up with grease. 3 pumps. 4. 5. It's going to probably come out on this one. 6. 7 pumps of grease before it actually really, yeah, that thing is just hanging on there, before it actually really started coming out. So now we know these bearings are greased really well. I'm going to clean this all back up, re-grease these splines, clean that hub with some Scotch-Brite, go ahead and reassemble, and this guy will be all set. I would definitely recommend it. It seems like these things are almost bone dry from the factory. So this is going to get a lot more life out of your equipment. All right, once you're done greasing, go ahead and wipe this off really well with some paper towel. That's all taken care of. I went and ran some Scotch-Brite around this hub where the bearing sits on top of. I'm going to take some grease, just lather it on there nicely. And I'm also going to put some grease inside on these splines. The front splines seem like they had a fair amount of grease on them. The rear was pretty dry. I'm just going to show you one. They're almost identical all the way around. So I'm just going to show you one, and then you guys can pretty much get the idea from there. So that's all greased up, polished. I'll go ahead and slip this back together. Wipe my fingers off. I don't know if it matters to hold the axle, but it seems like if you don't, it wants to slide away on you. And this is the first one I've had to battle to get in. Normally they slide right in. All right. That's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and take this bolt out before I get too far. That way I don't trap that caliper in there. So I'll get it ready to start reassembling, and I'll talk you through that process. All right, we're going to apply some blue Loctite on here. I don't know, blue, red, what they recommend. I generally just use blue and have pretty good luck with it. And I will post all the torque specs on the video. That way I don't have to sit there and try to remember them off the top of my head. Ideally, you should put some Loctite on and let it dry before you tighten it. You can get a issue called wet torque. You're actually adding lubricant to your threads, and you can actually have too high of a torque. So you want to actually let it dry a little bit and cure before you throw it on, as wet as it is. It's only a brake, so I'm not really worried about it. We'll be fine. All right, that's snug for right now. And we're gonna put this on. So once again, we're gonna have to have a buddy or a board to apply your brake so you can get enough torque to torque this nut. I have to look at the sheet, but I think the nut torque, there's a plus or minus of about 11 pounds, I believe. We have to torque it to about 184, 185 foot-pounds. So we'll go ahead and get everything torqued up and put the wheel on. I think the wheel torque spec is 111 foot-pounds, and that's pretty much it. We'll just tighten everything up. We'll make sure to reinstall your cotter pin in your cap, and that's about it. It's overall a pretty easy job, but it is somewhat time consuming. I took this time to inspect the brakes and also rotate the tires from the rear to the front. My wife gets a little heavy footed and likes to burn the rear tires off, so that's why we're having to do this too.
He's such a liar. Cut.
All right, now that we have the brake caliper torqued, we have this large nut, the axle nut torqued, put the cotter pin in, bent that properly. We're gonna put the cap over this, put the tire and rim on. Brake pads look great yet at 1,500 miles, but we barely use brakes. We just pretty much let the engine slow us down. Put the tire and rim on, and then we're gonna go to the back. We have one more to go and we're done. But that is the process. Like I said, I'd highly recommend it. It's a little bit of your time, but it's well worth doing. So this is something I'll probably do with the rest of the servicing, is greasing, oil changes. We did put our first twin air filter. We had that in. I did my first cleaning on that. They provided, what was it? No toil, I believe was the cleaner and the oil. The stock oil that they put in those filters is super tacky. I had to use naphtha to actually get that oil out of the filter. I tried using that no toil cleaner, didn't even touch it. So I washed it, got a lot of the dirt out, but used naphtha, got all the oil out, and then let that dry. You put the no toil oil in it, you gotta let it sit after you spray it all down, wring it out by hand, and then you gotta let it dry for a half hour before you use it. So that's all taken care of. So we're getting everything prepped up. So for this Christmas holiday, we're gonna try to go and do some riding at Black River Falls. I just wanna make sure we get all the maintenance done before we get up there, so less issues on the trail. All right, thanks guys for watching. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments section. It's pretty straightforward. We'll definitely get the torque specs on there for you. That's about it. Happy holidays and safe riding.